There is a quiet preference many people carry but rarely say out loud. It's not that you hate people. It's not that you're antisocial, or broken, or bad at life. You just feel better when the world goes quiet. Something in you softens when plans get canceled, when the door closes, when the noise fades, when you're finally home. Your shoulders drop an inch without you asking them to. Your breathing deepens for the first time all day. From the outside, loving home can look like avoidance, like laziness, like a life lived in the margins. But from the inside, it feels like relief, like returning. At home, you don't disappear. You finally come back to yourself. This isn't about being shy. It isn't about introversion in the flattened way social media defines it. It's about something deeper. It's about safety. For many people, the preference for home isn't a personality trait they chose. It's something their nervous system chose for them quietly, over time, in response to a world that asked too much for too long. When life becomes relentlessly demanding, the body shifts into a state of sustained alertness. At first, this looks like resilience, but the nervous system isn't designed for permanent activation. Eventually, something changes beneath the surface. The body gets tired of being on. When fight or flight is no longer sustainable, the nervous system finds another strategy, not collapse, but withdrawal. Not avoidance, but regulation. Home becomes the place where the system can finally exhale. The lighting is familiar. The sounds are predictable. No one needs anything. The nervous system stops bracing and begins to return to baseline. This isn't comfort seeking, it's stabilization. In a culture that glorifies constant motion and visibility, this response gets profoundly misunderstood from the outside. It looks like retreat. From the inside, something intelligent is happening. The system conserving energy, lowering perceived threat, bringing itself back. Quiet has become the signal for safety. And once the body learns that lesson, it doesn't forget easily. Some people don't retreat into their homes because they prefer quiet. They do it because life slowly taught them that being out there costs too much. This isn't shaped by one dramatic moment. It's shaped by accumulation, long days where you had to hold everything together, workplaces where the pressure never eased, relationships where you absorbed more than you received. The world stopped feeling neutral and started feeling heavy. There's often one night that stands apart. You come home and realize you're not just tired, you're depleted, not in a sleep-it-off way. In a deeper sense, your body feels hollow. Your mind can't organize another conversation. So you start choosing home more often. At first, it's practical rest, recovery. But home gradually becomes something more. The only place where you're not braced for impact, not anticipating criticism, conflict, or emotional labor you didn't agree to carry. Capacity matters. When it has been drained too many times without repair, the body begins choosing safety over stimulation by default. Home becomes shelter. The danger isn't in seeking that refuge. The danger is when no one ever names what pushed you there. Because without understanding the cause, retreat can quietly solidify into a life lived in self-protection long after the original threat has passed. If any part of this is landing for you, take a moment to drop a like on the video. It helps more people find conversations like this. And if you're drawn to the deeper psychology of human behavior, consider subscribing. It's the best way to stay connected to this work. Introversion is one of the most misunderstood labels in modern psychology, flattened into stereotypes. Shy, quiet, socially awkward. But the real experience of introversion isn't fear of people. It's about energy. For a true introvert, social interaction draws from a limited internal reserve. They might enjoy the conversation completely, fully engaged, warm, present, but something is being spent underneath. The cost doesn't show up at the moment. It shows up later. Mental fog, physical heaviness, an urge towards silence, not sadness, not anxiety, just depletion, the kind that can't be fixed by distraction, only by space. Home matters as a reset point, not as escape, a place where stimulation lowers enough for the nervous system to recharge, where there's no pressure to perform for anyone else. Many introverts learn this through burnout. Without sufficient solitude, they lose access to themselves. Choosing home isn't avoidable, it's maintenance. The myth is that introverts are closed off from life. The truth is they stay close to life by stepping away from it just enough to remain intact. There is another layer that rarely gets named, one that has less to do with people than with the environment itself. For some, what depletes them isn't social interaction. It's sensory overload. Crowded spaces aren't just busy, they're overwhelming. Conversations overlap. Music competes with ambient noise. Their nervous system doesn't filter this stimulation the way others might, so everything arrives at full intensity. Nothing fades into the background. The body responds as it would to any other sustained stress. Muscles tighten, breathing shortens, fatigue arrives quickly, not because something is wrong, but because the system is working overtime simply to stay regulated. Home offers control, predictable sounds, softer light, familiar textures, the ability to lower stimulation instead of constantly adapting to it. A person can enjoy meaningful connection and still avoid noisy restaurants. They can care deeply and still need quiet to function. When this isn't understood, people shame themselves, assuming they're too sensitive, too much. But sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's a nervous system wired to notice more. Choosing home, for those systems, isn't a weakness. It's intelligent self-protection. There is a transition almost no one talks about, because it happens without announcement. At first, being home feels restorative. You cancel plans and feel relief. Silence does what it always does, it heals. But over time, something subtle shifts. You stop looking forward to going out, not because you're tired, but because the idea no longer sparks anything. The world begins to feel distant, as if it's happening somewhere you no longer quite belong. This is when rest turns into retreat. The comfort that once gave you space to recover starts quietly narrowing your range. You're safe, but contained. Quiet, but disconnected. Days blur together. And what makes this transition so difficult to catch is how reasonable it feels. No crisis to name, just a gradual shrinking of life that's easy to justify as self-care. But peace was never meant to eliminate movement. It was meant to restore it. When solitude stops leading back to life, it quietly crosses into isolation. By the time most people notice, they don't feel trapped. They just feel stuck. What often makes isolation harder isn't the solitude itself. It's the shame that quietly wraps around it. At some point, a thought starts forming. Something is wrong with me. You watch others building careers, relationships, full lives, and you begin measuring yourself against an invisible timeline you never agreed to. The comparison is subtle, but constant. This shame layer feels personal, which makes it especially heavy. You don't see it as a nervous system response. You see it as a flaw, a failure to keep up with life, the way everyone else appears to manage. Shame is isolating by design. The more you judge yourself, the more you withdraw. The more you withdraw, the quieter the world becomes. And in that quiet, shame grows louder. But this loop didn't begin with weakness. It began with adaptation. Your system learned that pulling back reduced pain, that quiet felt safer than disappointment. Shame enters later when the strategy outlives the threat and turns inward. Nothing about this means you're broken. It means your system did exactly what it was designed to do. The answer isn't to swing toward the opposite extreme, to force overstimulation, or perform confidence you don't feel. Healthy rebalancing is smaller than that. A quiet walk instead of a crowded event. One honest conversation instead of 10 shallow ones. Small doses of contact that don't cost more than they give enough to remind your nervous system that safety can exist beyond your four walls. Home remains essential. It's where you rest, reflect, and return to yourself. But it stops being the only place you feel okay. It becomes a base, not a boundary. Here is the permission most people never receive. You don't have to choose between solitude and life. You don't have to become louder, busier, or more visible to be whole. Solitude was never the problem. It gave you depth. It helped you listen to yourself. It protected you when the world asked too much. But it was never meant to be the only place you lived. You are allowed to rest and re-enter. To have a home that grounds you and a world that slowly opens again. Not all at once, just enough to remind your nervous system that safety doesn't end at your front door. You can carry quiet with you, into conversations, into movement, into small moments of connection that don't cost more than they give. The peace you found at home was never something you had to leave behind. It was always something you were learning to carry forward. Before you go, I'd love for us to keep exploring these deep dives together. So if you want, hit subscribe. Here's a question for you. If you could reach back to one part of your childhood that still lives quietly inside you, what would it be? Share it in the comments, and let's map those hidden pieces together while they're still within reach. Thank you for watching, and for taking this journey with me.